I'll call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen for Monday, October the 24th. At this time, I'd like Reverend Jim Norman to please come to the podium and deliver the invocation and then the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Heavenly Father, we just want to thank you so much as we come to you in prayer for the many blessings you've given us. Lord, life is so brief, and so we pray that you would help us to count every moment precious. We ask you to forgive us of our sins and hear our prayers. Thank you for loving us, and may we love others more than ourselves. Lord, help us to honor you by doing unto others as we would have them do unto us. May we show the same kindness and love and mercy and compassion that you've shown to us. And be with our leaders, Lord, tonight as they make decisions. Give them wisdom and discernment. Help them, Lord, to do what is best for our city and what brings honor to you. Guard our thoughts and our words from evil and our selfish desires, and forgive us for where we have failed you, others, and ourselves. Protect and watch over our first responders and keep them safe as they protect us. Bless this city and all those who live in it. Provide for all of our needs. Keep us safe in your arms. And we ask that you answer all of these things. In the precious name of Jesus we pray. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mayor.
Ask the city recorder to please call the roll.
Yes. Mayor Noes,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Mathis,
Here.
Alderperson Amacher,
Still here.
Barry,
Here.
Dunn, Glick,
Here.
and Wilson. Present. 7 here.
So there. And I do have a proclamation this evening. Proclamation for the Youth Baseball Clinic. Mr. Dave Anderson and the Parks and Recreation Director, Jeff Dameron. And Mr. Jordan, I'd ask you to please go down and pick up the proclamation that I left in my file. It's in the office. Apologize for that. But, tonight, while he's bringing that up, we'll move right into the interruption with the, for my failure to bring up the proclamation. We'll move into the comments from citizens until he comes back. At this time, if you have signed in to speak tonight, we'd remind you that your comments need to be for something that's under the purview of the board, and limit your comments to within 3 minutes. So if you've signed in, do you have a list of those who've signed in?
Yes, sir. First one up would be Susan Harris. Is that correct?
Good evening. I'm Susan Harris, and I live at 200 Lake Circle Drive in Tullahoma. And I think most of you probably got an email I sent the end of last week, and I just came to reiterate this position and this request. I'm hoping that you will reconsider Alderman Glick's motion that passed at the recent special meeting. My understanding that a motion to reconsider could be proposed by any alderman that voted in the affirmative on that motion, which I believe would be Alderman Mathis, Glick, Amacher, or Wilson. I'm making this request for the following reasons. First, at the meeting, not all the aldermen had an opportunity to present their recommendations for improving the proposed 2040 plan, and this seems unfair. Second, the city had quite a few citizens have already expended considerable time, effort, and funds in developing the 2040 comprehensive plan. It seems counterproductive to repeat all the hearings and public meeting to understand how the 2011 plan would be changed. But to do otherwise, not to have those meetings, would be to ignore the significant citizen interest in this project. I think that you have all heard the concerns of the citizens and are aware of the improvements that need to be made. In my opinion, reverting to the 2011 plan as a starting point will take longer and be more costly than improving the proposed plan. I also will say, I probably shouldn't say this, but I will. We know that a huge driver of this is a road through Terra. Mayor Noes's motion addressed that, and it was approved by this board. And so that would be off the table. By ignoring the 2040 plan, you go back to 2011, there is no prohibition for that in the 2011 plan. And so you've opened the door again to that possibility. I don't think anybody wants that, and I'm not trying to scare people, but I'm just saying the 2040 plan had no road through Terra. The 2011 plan has no road through Terra. All of that would have to come through some other
Ms.
means.
Harris, I'm afraid your time is up.
I'm
Thank you.
sorry. No, she has 48 seconds.
I'm
left.
sorry.
Asking me.
I heard the, I apologize.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you. Anyway, if the motion is reconsidered, I hope you will, the plan to improve the 2040 plan with recommendations for the board is reinstated, what y'all were originally going to do. I would suggest that all the aldermen and the mayor submit their recommendations in writing, and these be distributed prior to the special meeting, similar to how you get your agenda items. And that way, all of you could see, representatives would have a chance to consider the suggestions beforehand. And thank you all for agreeing to serve all of Tullahoma. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, I believe I have
A special presentation.
what I want to present. Mr. Dameron, Mr. Dameron and Mr. Sanderson, will you come swing forward? We'll do that from right there. Okay, very good.
Yes, I think that'll be fine. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Board. I did want to make one quick announcement, if possible. We are putting a Fall Festival haunted hayride together. It's the first one that we've had in a few years since COVID. We've had to move that event from tomorrow until Wednesday. Tomorrow, exactly when our event is supposed to take place, there's a big storm that's forecast with some high winds, and it really wouldn't be conducive for our event. So we're moving that from tomorrow until Wednesday. It'll be at Fraser McEwen Park from 5:30 until 8:30. So I encourage everyone to join. With our new event that's coming up, Mr. Travis Sheffield approached the Tullahoma Parks and Recreation and our own athletics coordinator, Jeff Dameron, about putting a baseball and it was tremendously successful. We had about 50 girls show up, and it was a great week of training and of learning for the girls. Mr. Sheffield saw this and decided that he wanted to contribute as well. So I'm going to have our athletics coordinator, Jeff Dameron, talk a little bit more about the Tullahoma Wildcats and Friends Baseball Skills Clinic. Jeff?
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Board Mayor and Alderman. We're very excited for this event, and it's going to be on November the 12th from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. It's a free skills clinic hosted by Tullahoma Parks and Recreation, and, as Dave said, in partnership with Travis Sheffield, Tullahoma Sports Council, Tullahoma Little League, THS, and TMS Baseball. The clinic will be broken down into stations with current or former Major League Baseball players teaching the fundamentals. Among those are a lot of Tullahoma alumni. We have Tony Sheffield, who's an outfielder for the 92 Red Sox, Jordan Paris, catcher for the 2014 Rockies, Roel Coleman, outfielder and second baseman for the 2017 Tigers, Gary Phillips, third baseman and infielder for the 92 Giants, Justice Sheffield, 2014 Mariners, Brian Morris, 2006 Dodgers, DeJuan Brazelton, 2001 pitcher for the Devil Rays, David Hess, 2014 pitcher for the Baltimore Orioles, and Jordan Sheffield, 2016 pitcher for the Colorado Rockies. We already currently have about 150 registered kids ages 7 through 12 for this event. Anyone that's interested can go to www.tullahomaparks.com, create a Civic Rec account, and register online. We encourage the community to go to our Tullahoma Parks and Recreation Facebook page, hit the like and follow button to stay up to date for all the current events that we'll be doing this fall and also this spring. So I'd also like to mention, being a community event and in a small town, it's a lot of moving parts. Behind the scenes, a lot of things people don't see are people in businesses in the community. Troy Martin from First Bank, Brian Rogers from Rogers Insurance. On our own Tullahoma Parks Recreation, Dave, Ian, myself, Lyle, Tom, Marcus, Ben, Jeff, and JP. None of this would be possible without everyone's help and input on that. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. What an impressive group of major leaguers that are coming to Tullahoma to help put this on. Alderman Mathis, I believe Tullahoma's a baseball town, don't you?
Yeah, it has been for a while. And a lot of those players there, I was given the opportunity to coach them, and they turned out really well. But I will say one thing about Jeff Damron. He is doing one outstanding job of pushing all of these activities throughout this city. And without that, when he got the job, I said, it's going to go well because he knows what he's doing.
Well, anyway, thank you, gentlemen. It's be a fun event. And now reverting back to our comments from citizens. Anything under the purview of the board?
Next one up would be John Hershey.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for the opportunity to speak. I guess I would like to express my disappointment if you go forward and bringing 2040 back up again. We've been through this several times already, and it's getting a little monotonous, it seems to me. I have been to earlier meetings where there was a piece of paper there, and if you had any thoughts or comments, fill out the piece of paper and turn it in. I've never heard back from anybody about any of those things I turned in. So I don't know whether the word from the public has any meaning in this or not. But in my case, what I put in didn't seem to have any one way or the other. I heard lots of comments about Terra Estates throughout this thing. I live in a different subdivision on the other side of town. I live in Hermitage Estates. And on the map, the 2040 map, that's all yellow with kind of yellow hash marks on it, high density housing. Hermitage Estates ain't high density housing no matter how you look at it. And I don't think we want it to become that either. So I would ask you to let this go until we can come up with a better answer than the one that's there now. 2011 might not have been a good plan. It was the plan. But I don't think 2040 is a whole lot better. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up,
Mike Cheney.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Mike Cheney. I live at 150 Hermitage Drive in Tullahoma, which also is in Hermitage State subdivision. I'm here with my wife, representing that subdivision as well as Bel Air subdivision where we have another house. Also spoken to Mr. Mark Kelly, who was planning to attend tonight and give his thoughts, but he lives in the Somerset subdivision on the north side of town. He's unable to attend tonight because of medical. But anyway, so in last week's Tullahoma News, the new Planning Commission chairman, Mr. Schwer, had a letter to the editor, and in that he implied that all the opposition, or most of the opposition, is coming from those two subdivisions, Terra and Macon Manor. Well, that's not really true. If you think about the elections this summer, there were 3 new aldermen elected, and those aldermen ran on platforms of fiscal responsibility and opposition to the 2040 plan. And they were elected by citizens from across the community, not from just 2 subdivisions. So basically, the opposition to this plan is broad-based across Tullahoma. And so the citizens spoke during that election. And as John just spoke about, some weeks ago, citizens were invited to provide comments at the high school or listen to a presentation at the high school and give comments at Wilson Community Center. and I participated in that as well as many others from across the city. But again, I don't know what the mayor, board of aldermen, planning director, city administrator, planning commission did with any of those comments. It's unclear, and that's important input from the community. Last week's meeting, I do appreciate that the mayor offered up his 4 recommendations to revise the plan. But basically, those 4 recommendations were kind of like trimming a little around the edges and weren't going to fix the fundamentals of this plan. So, just not sure what kind of analysis that anybody did with the inputs from the community. Disappointed that I didn't see more action on those. So in conclusion, I'm in opposition to the 2040 plan. Planning to triple the population in such a quick period of time leans towards ridiculous, and concerned that it's a thinly veiled attempt to meet Washington administration's high density criteria, and push things that are happening in California and other states and try to obtain funding from those sources. So, it really would ruin the character of this community and turn into something that most of us don't really want. And in contrast, Tullahoma is already developing about 500 or even over 500 housing units in this year. And that growth rate, that's quite a high growth rate based on the existing comprehensive plan from 2011.
Mr. Cheney, your time is up now.
Okay.
Sorry. Thank you. Next on the agenda.
Looks like Derek Gardner.
Mr. Mayor, Board, thank you for your time. My name is Derek Garner, 405 Albemarle Drive. I just wanted to attend and say that I appreciate the vote last week in favor of the mindful approach to responsible growth that enables a democratic outcome representing a majority of Tullahoma's residents. We can all agree that responsible growth must be a keystone of the plan. Therefore, information needs to be collected, shared with the community and its representatives regarding infrastructure, schools, etc. Liberty cannot be preserved without general knowledge among the people who have a right and clearly a desire to know. While I can appreciate that a lot of people have provided feedback on the 2040 plan, I believe the divisiveness it's created in this community is a clear indication of the plan's lack of maturity, at least from a public awareness perspective. However, in the past several months, healthy dialogue has taken place. It seems to be bringing new information forward so that discussions and better decisions can be made regarding Tullahoma's future. These discussions will no doubt lead to definitization of elements within the plan. What is clear is that divisiveness in this community will continue to the extent critical aspects of the plan remain undefined or ambiguously defined, such that one could decide to have high density housing in an area opposed to a single family dwelling. I can also appreciate that the 2040 plan does not mean that land zoned today for R1 or agriculture will be rezoned to high density, or that it'll be somehow commingled with commercial developments that are also amongst high density homes. What the 2040 plan does indicate is the city's plan for certain areas. While most of us lack the substantive and procedural knowledge to really argue with the zoning process, what we all know is that you generally have to explain yourself when you deviate from a plan. And therefore, it's critical that any plan, let alone a comprehensive plan, be clearly defined such that community members can rely on it as a guidepost, as opposed to some general grant of openness to change, which might not be consistent with Tullahoma and its residents' wishes, especially those of us looking to make a home over the next 10 to 20 years with our families. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you tonight, and I'm glad to see the board is proceeding with the approach conveyed by Alderman Glick at the last meeting, which is simply to make adjustments to an existing plan, while separately making a more concentrated effort to address ambiguities and gaps in the 2040 plan.
Thank you. Next.
Mike Barnes.
Good evening. Mike Barnes, 901 12 Oaks Road. And I want to comment on a couple of things. The first thing I want to do is thank the board for the outcome of the vote in last week's meeting, and I do appreciate the willingness that you have to take more time to address some shortcomings in a 2040 plan. There's been a lot of public comment on the plan, as others have mentioned, and I do realize it's no easy job to address the large amount of input that you've received from the residents of Tullahoma. So thank you for your continued effort. Really do appreciate that. The other item I wanted to speak to is related to Save Tullahoma and the Save Tullahoma group. On social media and in some cases during these meetings, Save Tullahoma, the group, has been labeled as an aggressive activist group that, and these are quotes, does not respect others, beats down on people that are in a low income bracket, attacks the elderly by denying them a home to live in, and just prints cheap signs and spreads false fears of fire and death. I'm not real sure where some of these things are coming from, but I just want to take a minute to, assure you, and if you read any of these things online, I can assure you that that's not what the Save Tullahoma group is about. I mean, it's pretty simple. Save Tullahoma was formed by residents and homeowners here in Tullahoma, simply to represent the view of many of the residents that felt the content of the 2040 plan was not in alignment with what they wanted the town to be. Simple as that. The enormous amount of comment the city has received points this out, but just to be clear, the plan currently does not represent the direction the residents want Tullahoma to be headed. We hope the resulting plan, whether it be a revised 2040 plan or a modified 2011 plan, or maybe some other combined version of those plans, we hope that it better represents what the residents would like to see moving forward for the city of Tullahoma. And we look forward to working with you to help make that happen. So thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Marvin Sellers.
My name is Marvin Sellers. I live at 207 Terra Boulevard. And I want to address something to the alderman tonight about a comment that Alderman Dunn brought up that I was not even aware of until a meeting with Mary Seminego about houses that are in current zoning that is commercial and industrial. And, I didn't even know about this. And I bet most of the people in town wouldn't even recognize some of the areas that we have designated as commercial industrial that they would say, well, how could that be? There's been houses there for 50 years. And I don't know how that happened. I may look into this some more. I'd be willing to hear anything from the current alderman, but I suspect that we had city overreach many years ago that came in and designated houses that were residential into industrial commercial for I don't know what reason. I don't think procedurally the planning commission can come to you and ask to rezone it. I don't think probably some of the owners, other than the ones that Ms. Dunn has mentioned, don't know they're in commercial. I would like to see the city take this on as a task to look at this and ask the residents, did you want to be commercial? And the city should rectify this situation by making a request from the city to the planning commission to fix this situation so we don't have people that can't fix their houses up. I think that's cruel and wrong. And I don't know how it happened. I was shocked to see it, but I bet a majority of the Tullahomans do not know that this actually exists right now. So I'd like to know if that is that something the city can do? Can the city make a recommendation for the planning commission to look at that? Can I ask that question and get an answer from the board?
These are things we look at constantly, and we'll continue to look at that. So thank you for your
Okay,
comments.
thank you.
Thank you. Next.
That's all I have on the list. Mayor?
Okay. Thank you all for being here and being respectful of your time. I do appreciate it. Ms. San Diego, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mary Samaniego, Planning Director. I just wanted to make a brief comment during public comment, just mostly for public education. I made a commitment to the city that I would inform everybody as soon as there is activity on the Anderson Farm property. Last week, we received a rezoning application to rezone that property to R1. Not a planned development, just straight R1 zoning for the entire property. It's anticipated that rezoning request will go to the Planning Commission on Monday evening, November 21st at 4:30. So just so everybody knows, I'll also be putting signs out on the property and notifying all property owners within 100 feet per code. But I just also wanted to make that public announcement as I promised.
Thank you very much. This time, I'll enclose the comments from the citizens, and we'll look at the agenda. The agenda was published last Wednesday. And at this point, I'd like to get the approval of the agenda. Are there any comments, any changes to the agenda? Yes, Alderman Unlock.
Yes, I'd like to add an item to the agenda. I'd like to add a resolution to set a swearing-in ceremony for our school board member who unfortunately was not able to attend the last swearing-in ceremony, or to get a status update from that member to see if he is going to be able to fulfill his role in his duly elected position. And if not, we need to make sure that we are doing our job as the board to fill that seat if it is in fact vacant. And so I think the first thing to do would be to, again, a resolution to set a swearing-in ceremony to celebrate Mr. Sid Hill's election. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. And to add this to the agenda at this point, it only takes a simple majority. Any discussion on adding that to the agenda?
I don't really have an objection to that. Just outside, I guess it's just a resolution, so it's just a
resolution to establish a swearing-in ceremony for Sid Hill as
Just
the...
setting a swearing-in ceremony.
can we as a board, I guess that would be my only, I don't have a problem with that. But my only question is, can we as a board set the swearing-in ceremony for the school board member?
Or on the other one.
You don't really need a resolution. Yes, you can do that. He can be sworn in any time.
But we set that, not the school board?
Right, no, they're sworn in here.
Well, I know they're sworn in here, but it's through this,
And
without speaking to them.
we usually set it for the first board meeting as soon as the votes are certified. And when I reached out to the school board members for their availability, what I recall is Miss Robinson originally was not going to be available, and then she was able to come back from out of town in time. And then I don't think I got a response from Mr. Hill, but typically if they cannot attend, they are sworn in Judge Conley's office, because they have to be sworn in before they can attend their first board meeting.
Yeah.
And I couldn't speak to his attendance. I honestly, I don't know the status of Mr. Hill's.
I'm good with that. I just want to make sure it's something that we can, this board can do.
So this is a resolution just to set this, to put this on the agenda.
It's an item, agenda item, to set a swearing-in ceremony for Mr. Sid for the school board. And that was second by Mathis, is that correct?
Question, did you have a date?
Yes. I think that, Mr. Berry, when is the next school board meeting? I think it should be before then.
Third Tuesday of next month.
Before the third Tuesday of next month, but I will leave that at the leisure of Miss Moody whenever she wants to set that date.
Either he does it, comes in before then, or.
We should be able to get that done at our first
So-
regular board meeting in November.
For first regular board meeting, I think, yeah, that's the only one we would have between now and then, now would it? I guess that answers our question. Yeah, first regular board meeting, excuse me.
We got a second. We got a motion to set a swearing-in ceremony for the school board member Sid Hill, first Monday, first regular board meeting in November.
Mathis, do you agree to the, just changing the, actually setting the date?
You seconded the motion, then you
I
agreed
did.
to the, yeah.
Okay, we're just adding the date to it.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll leave that to the date.
Just do it again.
Okay.
Would we be amenable to saying if he hasn't come in and done it before that date with Judge Conley, he does it on
We can
by
discuss it.
honor before that date?
We're just setting it on the agenda now, but we can
Is it
discuss
all
that.
ordered? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, green for yes, red for no. And that passes 6-1. We'll make that as a review at the end of new business. There are no other changes to the agenda. I'd like to get a motion to approve the agenda with that amendment. Got a motion to approve the agenda. I just need a second from Mr. Alderman Mathis. We're green for approving the agenda with that amendment. Red for no. That passes 7-0. That we'll turn to the reports from the Alderman at this time. At this point in time, I believe we started with Alderman Wilson last time. We'll start with Alderman Almacher this time.
Yes, sir. So last Thursday, I had a housing authority meeting. They swore in their new board, and so they have a new chair and vice chair. The new chair is Miss Laurel Stone, and the new vice chair is Mr. Rob Keel. They are about to start the process of looking for a new executive director because their executive director is retiring. And so if you know of anybody that may be interested in that position, I would look for that in the coming months. I believe he is set to retire in February, but they are going to be advertising before then. Let's see. Small business shout out. I'm actually going to give it to an unlikely of enterprises, considering those of you who know what I do, but Ignite Energy over next to Planet Fitness. They are really out there getting it these days, and from one business owner to the next, I really like to see people step up their game and wish them continued success. And as far as Planning Commission, of course, we had a board meeting last week. After that, I don't believe I have any new updates from the Planning Commission.
Woodbury.
Mayor, did a couple things since our last board meeting. Attended the Oktoberfest at South Jackson Civic Center, which was great as always. And the plus was I got to watch Tennessee beat Alabama on that giant screen that they have in there. It was life size. So that was an exciting day. I believe, and Greg is out there, so you can correct me if I'm wrong, the Chamber Coffee is tomorrow at South Jackson Civic Center, and they will be announcing the Grand Marshal for the Christmas parade. So that's pretty exciting. I got to attend Friday the Bel Air Bees Walkathon. That's special to me because I coach their K through third football team, so I stayed through the third graders. And quick update: our second and third, we lost 6-0 in our first playoff game. But my K&1 team, coached by Zach, we have incredible coaches in the staff, and they're in first place. They won their game, and they will go to the championship. So that's pretty exciting there. We had a planning commission meeting. Had a school board meeting Tuesday. That is kind of cool to watch. They televise those, but they do a thing where they recognize, I mean, it's packed. They're going to need a bigger room, but they recognized the middle school cross country teams, bunch of different medals there. We had, they've got a leadership internship program that they're doing with and people who already have their I guess, doctorate in administration, but are interested in moving up into principals, or I guess they call it something different than principal of the building, administrator of the building, or so it's exciting to hear that. Coach Olive was there and gave an update on all the sports programs. Extremely proud of Tullahoma and our current sports and our sports legacy here. And update on the tennis courts. I believe they said that they'll be done the end of this month, with fingers crossed. That's all that I've got.
Thank you, Alderman Bear. Alderman Cliff.
I've not attended any committee meetings since our last meeting, but Winston Brooks is the staff liaison with the downtown committee, and he's been working hard to get together a grant program that we're offering to downtown businesses for the facade improvement, or there are other stipulations. If someone's interested, they can contact Mr. Brooks and get that. Haven't had any meetings with the downtown committee because right now I'm the only member. So I'm working on right now a proposal to give you, Mayor, and the board, if necessary, to flesh out that committee and a philosophy of adding some members to that committee and how we could go about it maybe in the future. So I'll be presenting that to you shortly.
Looking forward to it. Alderman Mathis.
Thank you, Mayor. I have not had any meetings. My first meetings will be in November, so I get to go to that now. In reference to watching the ball game on a big screen TV and watching Tennessee beat Alabama, I understand how proud you must be. But don't get used to it, because it's going to end, and it'll end this year probably. I hope they get to participate with each other again in the SEC championship, and you will see. That's all I have.
I feel it's important that I remind the board, keep your comments to things that are under the purview of the board. Alderman Wilson.
So over the past 2 weeks, I have participated in the MTAS Elected Officials Academy. So that's been really fun and interesting. Also, I have a few things to report on. The Tullahoma Fine Arts Center have been kind of wrapping up their current exhibit, Faith and Courage. They've had over 500 visitors, including 74 cadets from Tullahoma High School and over 20 members from Tullahoma, the Tennessee National Guard. They also, coming up in the beginning of next month, I think November 2nd, they have the Tullahoma High School will be having an exhibit there starting as well. And also, at the South Jackson Civic Center coming up is Always Patsy Cline, a musical at it's going to be November 10th through the 13th. Incredible vocalists and band, many of which have played the Opry and the Ryman. And also that they just had the Arts Crawl, which was an overwhelming success. And we're hoping that that's going to be an annual thing. And maybe if it's successful, maybe even more frequently than that. So that's all for me.
Thank you for that. Alderman John.
Sir, I guess just Mr. Sellers made a comment about what I said at the last meeting. I definitely want to encourage folks to reach out to Miss Mary Samaniego to find out more about that. In short, I will say that that blanket redistricting or rezoning happened during the 2011 plan. So I think the 2040 plan was looking to correct many problems with that. So please speak to our staff on that. The second thing I will say, I'm looking forward to representing the city in Phoenix during the Great American Defense celebration. I think as a person who I've had just about every male member of my family has either been in law enforcement or in the military. So this is one very small way I can say thank you, and I'm very humbled and grateful to be able to say thank you. And I'm very glad that Miss Beverly Lee made all those efforts to do this. It's really special. There's many generations of Tullahoma people who were a part of this. And the other thing is it's holiday season. There's a lot of things being celebrated since it's near fall equinox. So whether it's All Saints Day or Halloween or Diwali, just happy holidays. And if you don't celebrate, happy Monday.
Very good. The mayor has attended I'm on the airport board, and one of the things I want to make everyone aware of at the airport, the Smyrna Academy for Aviation is moving their operation from Smyrna to Tullahoma. They're building a new hangar here in Tullahoma. That's big for our airport here, for our aviation community. So as you mentioned, the Coffee County Leadership Academy, that's one of the things we did here in Tullahoma on the 12th, was to have them come in, and we got an opportunity to talk with them about city government and the municipal operations here in Tullahoma. And we had the Mayor's Planning Coordinating Committee last Thursday. That's an opportunity for all the agencies in the city to come together and talk about what's going on in the city. And it's always very informative. It gives me a snapshot of things that are going on around us that I may not know about. On Thursday of last week, I had the opportunity to go to Vanderbilt and present to the medical assistants, and not the professionals, but the assistants that support the professionals there at Vanderbilt. And we passed out 10 certificates to those professionals that make things happen there in the city. So with that, been a busy couple of weeks. Also, I want to announce relative to the Housing Authority that we have the mayor's appointment I want to be appointing Anita May to the Tullahoma Housing Board. She is be the resident member on that board. She'll serve the remainder of a term that ends in October 2026. So with that concludes my report, and it's this time we'll go to the city attorney.
I don't have a report tonight, but I will be discussing with you the lease with the Arnold Air Force Base tennis courts later on in the study
Very
session.
good. City Administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. I attended recently a Coffee County Strategic Planning Committee meeting with our Economic Development Director, Winston Brooks. Also attended Noon Rotary last week, and was my first opportunity to meet our new Coffee County Mayor, Judd Matheny. He was the speaker, and enjoyed that. I participated in some professional development training out at Motlow. The Highland REM SHRM, which is HR professionals, hosted an employment law seminar. And then wanted to share a reminder that this week I'll be going to Gatlinburg Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday for the Tennessee City Managers Association conference, and looking forward to joining you in Phoenix. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. At this time, we will go to the consent agenda. I'll read the caption for the things that are on the consent agenda. And of course, we will actually pass the consent agenda with one vote. Item number 22-163, the minutes from our October the 10th meeting. And on 22-164, to approve a request for a special community event signs in the public right-of-ways and a waiver of permit fees for the annual Eli Grove Legacy Foundation fundraiser for Tullahoma High School. Item number 22-165, announce a vacancy on the Tullahoma Regional Planning Commission. This will be the vacancy created by the resignation of Mr. Greg Sandlin, our good friend Greg Sandlin. Okay. Greg had to resign for health reasons, so his unexpired term will be ending in October the 26th. October 26, 2025. Item number 22, 166, accept the Parks and Recreation Professional Grant in the amount of $5,000 from Tennessee Recreation and Parks Educational Foundation to support professional training expenses. And the last one is item number 22, 167, to set a public hearing and first reading for Monday, November the 14th, on the request to rezone property at 2284 North Jackson Street, 5.47 acres from general commercial C2 to neighborhood commercial C3. So that's the consent agenda. Get a motion to approve the consent agenda. Motion from Gary.
Second.
Second from Mathis. Vote green to approve, red for no. Consent agenda passes 7-0. Under unfinished business, item number 22, 160 is consider approving and authorize the mayor to sign a professional services agreement with Burns Thompson Associates in a total amount of $15,705 for a full review of wages and benefits, provided by the City of Tullahoma Employees Compensation and Classification Plan. Need a motion and a second, and then we'll get it discussed. Motion from Barry. Need a second from Dunn. City Administrator or your designee do the best of that.
I'd be happy to. This item tonight has been updated. I would just quickly say that, kind of reiterate what we discussed last time. This is a full compensation review for all positions employed by the City of Tullahoma. And we would be looking to have this study conducted this fall so that we have the results in the spring as we're preparing for our annual budget. During your discussion last meeting, you asked for us to include some additional work so you can look at the total compensation package, not just wage comparisons, but also see how our benefits package contributes to the total compensation that employees receive. So that has been added to the study. It increased the cost just over $1,500. It's $15,705 is the new total amount. And the updated contract is in your packet. Also, Steve Thompson is here tonight if you have any questions specifically for him.
And on page 56, you see the benefits review. Section D is what's been added that you suggested last week. Any discussion? No discussion. Vote green for approval, red for no. That's 6-1. Under new business, a resolution to repeal and replace resolution number 1898 to adjust the spending plan for the American Rescue Plan funds for fiscal years 22 through 26. Those details are on page 62, excuse me. And you'll see that after the discussion last week, the changes that have been made, get a motion, then we'll have discussion. Motion carried, seconded by Mathis. Administrator, your input.
Would it be helpful if I'd just quickly review where those changes are? Underneath proposed project list number 2, stormwater program projects that are proposed for our grant application to TDEC. We removed the item that referred to a street sweeper, and we have moved that money into item E, Jefferson Street, Monroe Street box culvert replacements. That's a project that I believe the Public Works Director thought would actually need some more money added to it. We also, item number 5, Johnson Lane restroom and concession building. We first moved from item number 9, the residential garbage truck. It's already been purchased for $50,000 less than we originally estimated. So that $50,000 was moved up to the Johnson Lane project. And then I've moved the money from the additional parking up. I would think as we move forward with the project, whatever's remaining, or if we want to move money back to parking, that's how we would address that. Or if during the annual budget process, as someone suggested, if there was a use of reserves that you wanted to make to shore up that any of these projects, you could do that at that time. But I thought that was the simplest way, since both of those projects are Johnson Lane improvements.
Good discussion. Alderman Hallmarker?
Yes, two things. The first concern is my suggestion about the streetscape plan doesn't seem to be addressed in this, and I thought that the majority of the board had pretty well acquiesced that we probably wanted to reduce the expenditure on the streetscape plan and focus on hardscape and make sure that that was the intended focus, and particularly see if we needed to develop a co-occurring plan with TUA on lighting. I would like to see those funds go towards that, and I would like to see the total expenditure of that reduced, with the remaining being able to be allocated towards the various other projects. But I do think that 1.2 million is still a very large number to focus on things that will, well, a lot of it will die, for lack of a better term, as far as the trees and the flowers. And we're also asking for a lot of maintenance and upkeep. However, if we focus on the hardscape and the lighting of the streetscape plan, those things will last for many years to come. And I'm a little disappointed to see that not fleshed out a little bit more. My second concern is the tourism and downtown special events, marketing and promotions. I still am a little concerned that we don't really know what that 90,000 is specifically going to, and is that particularly too ambiguous? And I would really like to know more about your advisement and intention on that particular $90,000.
Okay. On the first item with North Jackson Streetscape, maybe I just misunderstood. I definitely took your comments and Alderman Glick's comments about focusing on the hardscape. I didn't hear any specific numbers that you wanted it reduced by. We already, as I shared with you in the design, and the design is currently being conducted, but what we've communicated to Reagan Smith that we want to see is a focus on the sidewalks, completing the sidewalk network. That's our first priority. And then we focus the landscape elements only to key intersections. So it wouldn't be the entire 2-mile stretch by any means. And then there's some gateway signage. The lighting that you mentioned with TUA wouldn't be proposed as a use of this rescue plan funding, because we currently structure all of our street lighting through an investment account where we pay monthly a bill to TUA. And that can include capital expenditures like the upfront cost of this, as well as covering ongoing maintenance. For the most part on projects, we have capitalized the upfront cost into that investment account. You might remember this downtown project where we're replacing 3 signalized intersections with TUA. We are funding about $350,000 of that project up front because we decided that since those capital items are not going to be maintained by TUA, we wanted to pay those costs one time rather than capitalize them into the account and pay on them forever at a 14% interest rate. So that's why TUA lighting is not a part of this, because we have a different funding structure when we work with TUA on projects.
Would it be 14% interest if we did it that though? If we did
It would be, but we would have a discussion about if there's some of those costs that we want to break out and pay for up front, like we're doing with downtown.
That is why I wanted this reduced, so that we could allocate some of that to those upfront costs.
Any further discussion on the, yes, Alderman Berry?
I was just saying, I agree with Alderman Almacher on a couple of the things she's saying. I thought when we were discussing her, my suggestion was, and maybe it was misunderstood, that the money could be taken maybe out of North Jackson Streetscape plan to provide the extra money for the restroom at Johnson Lane, not to take out the parking at Johnson Lane. And my point on that is that the Johnson Lane project has been ongoing for over 20 years now. And it's a good chance we have right now that they have the ARP money that we could finish up a project before we start a whole new project. The whole new project is the streetscape plan. Good plan, but it is a new project. I'd like to see us go back and finish a project that we've been working on for over 20 years. So that's why I want to take a little bit of money out of that streetscape plan and move it back to finish the additional parking and the restroom, because I guarantee you're not going to save any money on that. Out of the $900,000 on that restroom concession building, it's going to cost every bit of that. So I think that's the way I'd suggest funding it. The other thing, I did also have concerns about the tourism and downtown special events $90,000 money. I don't really have a good handle on what that is or where it's going to. And if it is just for tourism, I know we have several groups in town that do especially tourist activities and that promote tourism in this town. So, I mean, should that money go to them or, so I would just like to have a little bit better understanding of item number 10.
Yes, so I didn't answer the second part of Ms. Almacher's question. The reason why it's vague is intentional. The board, we had 4 study sessions, and there were some different revisions and some consolidation of thoughts that occurred in the spending plan. To my knowledge, there isn't a specific use identified yet. What the thought was is that some portion of the money should be spent to support the local and small business community that suffered some of the hardest hits during the pandemic. And so this money was set aside for the TAEDC board to use the 2 councils that are underneath them, Tourism Council and Downtown, to reach out, get some input on maybe what the best use of those funds would be, and then have the TAEDC board make a recommendation back to you on how to spend the $90,000. One of the things I meet with their board regularly. I think we've only had one discussion about this source of funds, and they wanted to our agreement was, let's wait and see what happens with the study session and the board's actions, if that money needed to be used in some other project or if it was still available to be used in this way. So one of the things to remember about the money is that there are timelines for when it has to be spent. So we need to be thoughtful about that. We certainly still have till 2026. So we're not short on time, but that does need to be a part of our consideration.
I would like to see a proposal on what that money would be used for before I'd want to allocate any funds. It's pretty clear on, everything else on there, but that, like you said, is vague. I'd like to see a proposal from TADC if that's the organization you're planning to get it to. And then I guess my second question is.
Well, I think if this board is planning to leave those funds there, then that'd be the next step they would take.
I would.
And then just to remind you, when we met on this, we were in study session, so you couldn't take any formal action. And that makes it difficult for me to see a clear majority. Some of the items that you've suggested might need to be made in the form of a motion or an amendment for that. This is a proposed revision that I'm presenting to you, but I think that's certainly in your purview if you want to amend it.
Alderman Dunn.
Is there a timeline on spending on this?
Yes, there is a timeline on spending. We have to have, let me look if I thought so, but I won't or not. But all the funds have to be obligated by the end of 2024, and then all projects have to be fully completed by the end of 2026.
I see. Okay. And I think the reason why I asked is because I've talked to Brian Skelton, the president of TUA, in passing concerning the street lights, because I agree that's one of the most distracting parts about North Jackson, I'd say, is the wiring. And again, this was in passing, but he made it seem to me that would be a multi-million-dollar project, and it would take several years to complete, that this was not something we could just do next summer. So I understand where Ms. Almacher is coming from, because I agree that needs to be looked at for sure. But given our time constraints, what can we do with $1.2 million? And I think sidewalks for sure, having some of those little, welcome signs. And you look at, I think if you look at the Wagner Park, Lyle Russell in particular has done a fantastic job really beautifying that with just some, fairly small as far as plants and things, but it looks fantastic over there. If you haven't noticed, it looks really, really good. And I think doing just small things like that could really make North Jackson look really good until we are able to have an agreement with Mr. Skelton where we can move forward with that.
Excuse me, I think approve. Let me say that the North Jackson corridor is one of the economic drivers for our city. The revenue that we're generating there on North Jackson is very important to our communities. Anything that we can do to drive new business on North Jackson is a good investment. With that, I just want to make it aware that that is very, very important to beautify. And yes, the wires, some of that's very distracting, but the other thing is that I don't want to get into the weeds too much on details of how our city administrator is proposing these. I think she's done a great job in allocating money the best anyone can to make sure we get Johnson Lane done and beautify North Jackson. So, Alderman Berry.
I share the concerns on the 90,000. I shared that the first time we went through this. I'm okay with taking 90,000 and setting that there and giving our economic development board a budget that they can work with to look at investing into Tullahoma's businesses and economic driving. I'm not okay with just saying, here's $90,000, you go spend it, right? But I think that if we say, okay, here's $90,000, this is a budget, tell us what you can do with it, don't spend anything until you do it, and we've approved it, that I'm okay with. Because they do need to have some sort of, they need to know what they're working with before they can come to us with a plan and say, this is how we want to invest in our downtown businesses or in our tourism businesses or in South Jackson or fine arts or anything like that. We need to give them some sort of a budget. So that I'm okay with. On the streetscape plan, I think my question to my colleagues in general, if we're looking to give direction, when we talked about it, I wasn't on the same page as reducing that amount of money, but I am 100% on the same page of let's not just go throw a bunch of trees and plants and shrubs everywhere. But I think I've been pretty clear on that in a lot of different areas. But I don't believe that that is what we're spending $1.2 million on. I do agree with the direction of let's look at where we can hardscape and beautify things that are more permanent versus trees. But my question would be, out of that 1.2 million, it's easy, I think, for us to sit here and say, just cut it. Just take some money out of that and put it somewhere else. What specifically in that are we wanting to cut? Are we wanting to cut the intersection changes? Are we wanting to cut the sidewalks? Are we wanting to cut and pull money from the intersection across from the high school to get you safely from one side or the other? I don't think if we cut plants out of here fine, let's cut all trees and all plants and all that. But you're talking 10, 15, 20, I'd probably be sick to my stomach if we spent $20,000, $30,000 on plants and trees like that. But I think that it's not fair for us just to say, hey, reduce this. We need to be specific and say, what is it that it is exactly what we want to cut? And that's how much. If the sidewalks are what we want to cut, then say cut however much that is. If we want to cut the pedestrian piece out at North Jackson, then we need to say, or in front of the high school, then we need to say, take that $120,000, $200,000 and cut that and put it somewhere else. But just saying cut it and come back, I don't think is it's fair.
Is there anyone on this side? She needs to go first. Alderman Wilson?
In looking at number 10, the tourism and downtown special events marketing promotions, couldn't we say, because it's about tourism too, and we do have 3 groups that really, tourism is what they do, what their specialty is, which is South Jackson Civic Center, Tullahoma Fine Arts, and Hands-On Science Center. Couldn't we maybe say that TDEC gets $50,000 to kind of decide what they want to do, and then split the remainder of the $40,000 up between the 3 major tourism groups within our city, which would give them each $13,333 to kind of, since that's what they do, they specialize in. That way, at least we have an idea of how it would be spent.
Alderman Blake?
I agree with Mr. Berry about just blindly cutting money out of the streetscape plan. But I think what I discussed in our study session was that we are working on, the engineering is being done, am I correct? For that
Yes.
project? Yeah. So once the engineering's done and we let the project for bid, we could have it itemized and get back a price list of what the project's cost. From that, we can choose which direction we want to go, and then either allocate money back over to some other thing. Then there'll be a price tag on things. We'll know what to do. So that was kind of my thing on it. And it's nothing I want to cut down. I agree with Alderman Dunn, the wires and stuff going down, but unfortunately, those aren't even TUA's wires anymore. Those are AT&T and Charter, and I don't know what we could ever do to get that corrected. It's going to be very expensive at any rate, but that would beautify it more than anything. But anyway, so that's what I say is just let it for bid, get a price list, and we can choose what we want to do. The rest could go back to Johnson Lane, where we could also do the same thing, is bid the restrooms, bid the parking lots, also have a price tag on those items.
Alderman Lamarck?
So when I was speaking to the streetscape plan, I too understand that most of those wires are not under TUA's purview, and there may be a point in the future in which we set a date, maybe by 2030, we expect everything to be underground in this corridor or in this corridor. There may be something we can do to that in the future as far as dealing with the wire overhang, but do I think that that's for this project? No, I don't. I was speaking more to the decorative street lights, like, for example, that you would see in Winchester when you go around the square. And I would like to see, in conjunction with this, a plan with TUA of what those might cost and particular locations where we could put those to improve the street lighting and the beautification. I would not be in favor of paying 14% interest on that. So I would, if that was something we wanted to do in conjunction with the hardscape, I would want to not capitalize that into a 14% interest rate, but use some of these funds in order to shave off some of that off the top end, obviously, of the cost of that. And then we would have that capitalized plan for maintenance of that. As to going back to number 10, so a couple of problems I have. While I'm a great supporter of the TAEDC board and the job that Winston Brooks is doing, that is been great for bringing in retail and commercial businesses. However, there is a delineation between businesses and commercial storefronts and tourism. So I want to make sure that the TAEDC, I'm not sure if we're wanting to focus that money on tourism, that TAEDC is particularly the only entity that we should be talking to about how best to expend these funds. But I would be on board with perhaps getting a steering committee to do that. And I think that the Tourism Council and the Downtown Council would be great if those two things actually existed. Because also Tourism Council is non-existent and we have no members and we don't meet. So
I guess that's just me and you. Then.
that's just me and you, Kirk. So again, I'm not okay with just giving more money to bureaucracy to make it rain. So let's make sure we have a plan in place. So with everything that we've said, I think we have till 2024. Let's keep this on the drawing table, except for the monies that we've already expended. I know we said build to the project out at Johnson Lane. That includes parking, in my opinion. Come back with, let's revise this one more time, I think, and I'd like to make a motion to postpone at this time until the next meeting for Ms. Moody to take our feedback and maybe come back again with it one more time.
Second.
Mayor?
We've got a motion and a second. But if we've got a motion and a second, do you have anything else to add since we've got a motion and a second?
My comments,
postpone.
I guess, can only be on the postponement, but my concern would be that my preference would have been to see some amendments made so that it's clear what you want me to change, instead of taking one comment from each alderman and not knowing if next time that's going to be supported by the majority. But that's just my concern with the postponement, is that some of these items, as Alderman Glick mentioned, this is almost like a budget estimate because
We're
these
relying on
haven't
your
been-
expertise. So
Well,
bring us back some.
These items have not been bid. So just as you said, this is not the last time by any means that you're going to see this list of projects. It's going to continue to be amended and amended as we incur actual costs.
I think I heard your motion to postpone. I heard a second. Any further discussion on that motion?
I would like to speak to the postponement. I think the further we kick this down the road, the less time we will have to actually be able to send out bids. And while 2026 sounds like a lifetime away, it really isn't. And we're about to go in on holiday season where we're not going to be meeting as often. So I really would like to encourage this board to vote tonight, give it a yes, and we can amend as we go.
Oh, I would like to make a comment on the postponement motion as well. To postpone, we're really getting into micromanaging this operation. And I'd sit up here and I'd take $10 out of this one and put it in another one. I'd take $15 out of that one, put it in another one. I think we have a professional city administrator who has done a great job of listening to us from our previous discussions and has done what we asked to be done to the very best of her ability. So with that, I would vote against postponing and vote to approve this motion to accept this item on the agenda tonight. And I think our city administrator has been listening to what we're saying and will be doing exactly what we have asked to be done, as she has demonstrated with this proposal that she's come back with. So with that, yes, Alderman Berry.
I'm less concerned about the 2026 deadline and more concerned about, we only have some concerns over the North Jackson Streetscape Plan and the tourism dollars, both of which I 100% agree with Alderman Glick. Let's finish the engineering, get back that list of things that we want to do, and then make a decision on that then. But we've got to have a budget as a starting spot. Where I am concerned is because of these two items, we're holding up stormwater engineering plans, we're holding up stormwater actual work improvements, we're holding up sidewalks, we're holding up all of these different pieces that we know we need over those two things. Alderman Almacher just commented, we're asking you to use your expertise. Well, that's what this is. That's exactly what this is it's her expertise. And so we can't both make that comment and then say, but I do agree, I'm going to vote no to postpone. But I will say, if this postponement does fail, I'm going to come back with, don't spend any money on the tourism in downtown and marketing special events or the North Jackson outside of the engineering study until you've come back to us, and let's see what you got going on, and then we'll decide from there. If those are our only two concerns, let's not hold up the things that
We have a
know.
motion to postpone, vote green to postpone and red to not postpone. We have a motion to postpone. We have a vote to postpone.
Point of order, Mayor. Have we given, sorry, the point is, I don't know that we gave her the clarity on what we needed her to come back with.
Understand your concern. We have a motion to have a vote to postpone. And we'll come back with another proposal. We'll postpone again. With that, resolution number 1930 fails, 4-3.
It was postponed.
Postpone. Be on the agenda again. Next resolution number 1931, a resolution supporting the grant application for the drive training safety grant and public entity partners for up to $5,000 towards the purchase of loss prevention items and require a local match of $4,000. $5,000 grant with a $5,000 grant. Motion to discuss from Alderman Berry. Need a second.
She's got it.
Alderman Dunn, second. Alderman, City Administrator Moody.
If awarded, these grant funds would be used to purchase GPS vehicle tracking systems for the Public Works Department. And it's $5,000 with a 100% match, $5,000.
In discussion. Green for yes and red for no. That passes 7-0. Item number 22, 168, consider the approval for the city administrator to prepare all the necessary documents in support of the sale of the city-owned downtown property addressing 127 West Lincoln Street. That's by Sweet Bay Assets. And set an offer termination date of 45 days from the completion of all paperwork and payment required. Those details are on 68. You saw the proposals that we received from the three proposals that we had. Alderman Berry.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Alderman Dunn, seconded. In discussion. Hearing no discussion, Alderman, City Administrator, comments.
Just for the public, I would just like to add that this property at 127 West Lincoln Street in the downtown was advertised for sale for 60 days after being surplused by this board. We received 3 proposals. They were reviewed internally, and then our recommendation to you tonight is for you to authorize the city attorney to prepare all necessary documents to support this sale and set an offer termination date of 45 days from the completion of all paperwork and payment required. That's per our purchasing regulations. And then just remind you that upon successful completion of all those documents and acceptance of our offer, we would bring back before you, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen would be asked to consider approval of the final sale agreement.
Any discussion? Alderman Lamarck.
I'm not familiar with Sweet Bay assets, but I'm also curious, what if they are unable to provide that capital investment for whatever reason, or the full restoration of the building in the timeline? What happens then?
So City Attorney Worsham may be better to answer that, but we are looking in the final agreement to have some language added that commits them to a timeline, or perhaps having a provision that would allow the city to take back ownership of the property if nothing was done.
Any further discussion? Vote green for yes and red for no. Passes 7-0. The new item on the agenda under new business is to set agenda for a swearing in ceremony for Sid Hill on the school board for November, the first meeting in November.
Your regular meeting in November will be November 14th.
Or November the 14th is the agenda item that we have added. You made the motion. Need a second?
Second.
Got a second. Any discussion?
I-
Alderman Dunn.
Yes, I feel like this is a bit of overreach. I'm pretty confident that our school board's able to handle this. I know there is some question about where Mr. Hill, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that he has moved away. I think the school board can take care of that. I'm not really sure why we need to step in. So I'm going to vote no.
He's not going to step down, he's going to be sworn in. And that is required. He must be sworn in order to take that position.
Alderman Lamarck.
My understanding that there have been a couple of votes at the school board that have turned up in a 3-3 tie. And some of this would, and future votes, and some of this would eliminate some of that to make sure that, I think we need a status update, and I think that Mr. Hill needs the opportunity to be sworn in. Also, it is incumbent upon this board to observe and note any vacancies, as well as advertise those in citizen participation forms. And also, it would be incumbent upon this board to fill that seat if Mr. Hill derelicted his duties or decided he did not want, in fact, to be sworn in or was to resign. I'm not sure you can resign if you haven't actually taken seat yet. But right now, that seat is in limbo, and that is a disservice. And it is, since I feel like it is upon our board, we need to try to bring a resolution to that. Mr. Worsham?
It is my understanding, and this is hearsay, so I'm just going to tell you what I understand it to be, having had a conversation with Clifton Miller, who was the school board attorney at the time, that Mr. Hill, Dr. Hill, I guess, has taken a position in another town. But his family remains here and his home remains here, and his intention to continue to serve on the school board here, even though his job is elsewhere. Now, we all know that people work a lot of places now. They can have one domicile, one residence, and that's what he's chosen to do. That's the last word I heard. However, I think it'd be a good idea for us to get a report from the Board of Mayor, the Board of Education, relative to that to make sure, because I talked with the new school board attorney this afternoon, and he was not aware that this situation had changed, but that's the situation now. So I think it's appropriate to go ahead and establish a date for swearing him in, and if it doesn't happen, then we just won't be able to do it, and then we'll have to replace him if he does resign. But he's not tendered his resignation, and it's not been accepted by the Board of Education.
Mayor? Oh, sorry.
I have one question, and then Alderman Dunn will have a question. Could Mr. Hill go to Judge Conley's office at any time and be sworn in?
Yes, he could, if that's what we've done in the past. It doesn't have to take place before a regular board meeting. It's not really part of our regular proceedings.
Yeah, Alderman Dunn?
I just want to apologize because I was not fully aware that his residence is still here. So this is how rumors start. So I apologize for speaking out of turn on that. I just want to encourage the school board to make this decision, and if they feel like they need us to intervene, then at that point we should. But I want to give them the opportunity to have purview over this item.
Until the Board of Education accepts his resignation, he is serving, although not sworn in yet.
Well, all we're doing at this point in time is setting a date for a swearing-in ceremony, provided he's not determined to be eligible. What we're doing. Okay, Alderman Mary, I wanted to get your comments. You're on the school board. Representative liaison to the school board.
Couple of things real quick. One, it is false that there has been a 3-3 vote. I've been at every meeting and watched every vote, so that is inaccurate information. There was one 4-3 vote, but that's been the only close vote. The school board is their own elected body. We don't have dominion on them. I don't believe. If Sid does not by this date, I don't believe this board, correct me if I'm wrong, even has the authority to declare that seat vacant. I believe the school board would have to do that. We have no control over that seat. I do think, I 100% agree that he needs to be sworn in, and he needs to do that as soon as possible. But I also think that the courteous thing for this board to do, rather than telling the school board, who is their own duly elected set of officials, you will do this on this date, that the courteous thing for us to do is to reach out to them and ask and say, what's the deal? It's a little, I think, disrespectful. We wouldn't approve. It'd be the same as them coming to us and saying one of our people need to vacate the seat. There's no difference there. They have no control over us. We have no control over them. We can set a date. Doesn't matter if we set a date. I think that this is just kind of a publicity kind of deal. So I would say instead of this board demanding somebody show up by this date, that maybe this board says, hey, let's have a representative of this board reach out to the school board, have a conversation and say, what's happening here? And can we move this along, would be my recommendation. I'll vote no to this, but I am 100% supportive of, we do need to reach out and say, hey, what's the deal? And dude, you need to get sworn in. And I think before we make this motion, the person who makes the motion should call the guy up and say, hey, what's the deal? Or, it just.
Alderman Almond.
Well, I think you're taking it wrong. I believe it's customary for the Board of Mayor and Aldermen and this board to set a date for a swearing-in ceremony. And rather unfortunate if Mr. Sid Hill could not have attended the first one. And it's my understanding that he is still, in fact, a resident and holds domicile in Tullahoma. And if he intends to serve on the board, then he is welcome. But he should, in fact, take his seat. And I'm not sure that, and this would be a legal opinion of mine, but it's my opinion that that seat is still very much vacant because he is not sworn in. And we've had an election and there's been no swearing in. And since you are the liaison to the school board, I'm a little disappointed that you have not reported on that, Mr. Berry. And it rather, in fact, probably should have been you to reach out to Mr. Hill and give us a
Those comments are
report.
inappropriate.
Is
Please
it?
restrict your
He's
comments
the
to this.
liaison. My bad. Point made. So, yes, that was my motion. I think we need to bring resolution to this, and it is incumbent upon us to make sure that seat is filled.
No further discussion, vote agreeing to set this swearing-in ceremony and read for no. That passes, swearing-in ceremony set for November the 14th. You got that?
Yes, sir.
And that concludes the agenda for the Board of Mayor and Alderman this evening.
Mayor, one quick thing. I forgot in my board report. The department reports are in each of these board packets in the second one of the month. And I wanted to give a shout out to Mitchell Rickles, who got the employee of the month. There's a cool little detailed bio in there, but I see him everywhere, and he's part of the staff that makes the city go round. Without the staff, we don't do anything.
Board of Mayor and Alderman is adjourned, and we'll now take up beer board. Any public comments for the beer board? Hearing none, we go to the consent agenda. The only
Move
thing
to
on the
approve. Sorry, I've got to use the bathroom.
27, we've got a motion and a second. Approve, vote green for yes and red for no.
And hold on one second, you guys need to revote. There you go. Had cleared it. And Mathis. Thank you. Too quick.
Passing 7-0. That, there being no unfinished business and there being no new business, we'll adjourn the beer board and we'll convene study session. At this point, the first thing I want to do is take up the